What one lie gained you the most in life? I was working in a job I loved when one day I get a phone call at work from a direct rival company. "Hi, I understand you used to work with Mr. X. Well, we've got a position available at this place, and he's started working for us recently and recommended you for the role. Would you be interested?" I thought it was crappy to literally tap someone up by calling them at their work, and I really loved my job, so I said no. Wife said it was silly to just dismiss it out of hand, so I called them back the next day and arranged a meeting. Job was a step up and a decent difference in pay, about 30%. So I lied about my current salary. I said I was being paid more than they were offering for this step up, because I didn't really want to sound silly by saying, "Yeah, it's a big pay rise, 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 it's a big pay rise." A couple of days later I get another phone call. They've increased their offer substantially and it's practically twice my actual real salary. Even though I loved my job, I couldn't refuse it. That was the start of a swift rise up the pay scale for me and changed my life from how can I pay the bills to fairly comfortable. I had a very important job interview. I was flying from New York to Miami and I had a flight get delayed, and I lied to the airline that my wife was in labor and I needed to get to Miami ASAP so I don't miss the birth of my first child. They put me first class and got me to Miami at my scheduled time, and I was still able to get to my job interview and got the job. That I had dinner reservations in the early 90s helped pay for college by selling and installing car stereos. A friend introduced me to a girl that wanted a pretty high-end system, a girl that was way out of my league. Smart, funny and attractive. I was pretty smitten. I wound up doing work on the car over a period of several days. Each day I'd try to work out a way to ask her out, but I wasn't getting any signs of interest that would open the door. Once it was done, there were a couple of post-install tweaks that needed to be done. She called me at 3 p.m. and said that an evening class had been cancelled, and could she stop by to get the car finished up. Simply because I didn't want to work too late, I said sure, if you can come right over. She did, and while I was putting the last pieces back together, she mentioned her surprise that I wasn't dressed to go out, as she assumed that is why I needed to wrap up quickly. In a rare moment of fast thinking, I said that I had plans, but they fell through. After a brief pause, I said, "Hey, it would be a shame to let these dinner reservations go to waste. Would you like to join me?" She did. I made the reservations when she ran home to change. Long story medium, we've been married for 23 years. Smooth. When I got out of graduate school, no job would take me because I was overeducated and underexperienced. So after 6 months of failing to get a job, I just left the master's degree off of my resume. I explained that I worked odd jobs and traveled. Not worth putting on the resume. I landed a job in less than a month. I actually am still pretty good friends with the hiring manager. He told me that he definitely wouldn't have hired me if he knew that I had a master's degree, so it was worth it. My parents were hardcore addicted to drugs, all of the bad ones at least. From 7th grade to my sophomore year in high school, I was incredibly depressed due to my at-home situation, and my grades began to suffer as a result. My grandmother was willing to let me move in with her, but my parents would not let me move out, because they were convinced they weren't addicts, and would guilt-trip me when I talked about it. Finally, when my friends were old enough to drive, one of them helped me pack up a bunch of my stuff and move out under the guise of staying the night with him for a couple of nights to record music. He drove me to my grandmother's house that night and helped me move in. I never went back and, to this day 10 years later, have always been grateful for my friend helping me with that lie. I'm in graduate school now and my mental health has never been better. What a great friend, happy to hear you got out of that house in the end. We had worked in a very small older office and my co-worker at the time would love to bring in leftover fish and heat it up in the microwave. Salmon, tuna fish, cod, mahi-mahi, etc. After he did this, the entire office would smell like rotten fish the entire day. I did not want to cause strife in the office, so I just endured it for as long as I could. One day he brought in fish. I put a sign on microwave saying it WSS broken, use one on floor below. Microwave wasn't broken, but he went downstairs and heated up his fish. Someone from floor below complained about the smell and it got all the way to my boss, who told him he couldn't heat up fish again at work. Sure, I can fill that $480k purchase order for you. No problem. Oh, frick. What have I done? Well, more than a decade later and my company is killing it. It's been a hard grind, but I'm proud. This is half the plot of War Dogs. I did 3D printing for a single project that my buddy helped me, which was my first foray after starting to learn Blender on my own. Had a lot of trouble but got the parts I needed. About 4-6 months later he asks me if I want a job in his Fab Lab, where he was promoting me as a 3D guy, but I had only done the one project, which turned out poorly. Now it's been almost 2 years and I actually feel qualified for the work, thanks to Google searches. Google searches help a lot. Never underestimate them. I'm going to France on. It's gotten me out of so many situations where I might be forced to spend time with people not as useful for French people. I was once interviewing for a job where I asked for $40,000 a year more than my last job. They asked what I made at my last job, and on the spot I said $X, but I got 2% of the company to make my request seem reasonable. I bought 2% of the company. They didn't give it to me. Not technically a lie, but still. They gave me what I asked for, though, and my salary has stayed that high, and even gotten higher. That lie was 7 years ago, so it was worth around $280,000. I would like to buy one company, please. This one is kind of crappy, but it's true. So here goes. My dad and I are not close at all. Without going into too much detail, he's not a great person and he didn't treat me or my sister well. He's also in pretty poor health, and there was a week that we thought he wouldn't make it. That week also just so happened to be the week that we had a big reorganization at my place of work. A co-worker knew that my dad was sick and told my boss. My boss told our director, who passed the info, unbeknownst to me, all the way up to our CIO. However, somewhere along the line, the story changed, so I get called in my boss's office near the end of that week to talk about the reorg. He basically tells me that, while I have been doing a great job and there wasn't any actual cause, the company would be letting me and a few others go due to the restructuring. I say okay, thank him for his time and mentorship and head to my desk to pack up my stuff. I wasn't mad or anything. A lot of us had been expecting something like this to happen based on rumors. As I made my way to my desk, I saw one of the HR liaisons kind of just hovering nearby. I figured he was there to talk about something like severance, benefits, etc. Nope. Turns out he had been sent to me by the CIO directly, as she had heard my father had just passed away. After a short conversation with HR guy, I found myself in front of the new CIO. She had just recently lost a favorite uncle, and I suppose she felt empathy for me. I sat there, somewhat dazed, and just tried to empathize with her when she asked me how I felt about his passing. I guess I sort of just went with it and said what I thought people would normally say in a situation like that. In the end, she told me she'd find a place for me in the organization and that this wasn't a good time to let someone like me go. I ended up keeping that job for another couple years until the next reorg, at which point I left on my own terms. TLDR. Dad and I are not close at all. He got sick. Someone heard he died, and I went along with it to keep my job. Well, at least your dad ended up being useful for something, right? I have been in therapy for 2 years and a gap in the resume, so I'll lie and tell them that I worked at the family bussiness. Yes, I'm prepared to take on this responsibility. I really wasn't. My mom had fallen off the map. CPS had finally caught on and was breathing down my neck, and I had to fight and argue to keep my younger brothers with me. We finally got put in front of a judge where we found my mom didn't want custody of any of us anymore and was states away, refusing to return and unable to be located. I had thankfully just barely turned 18 literally 2 days before and was exhausted and terrified from working non-stop and taking care of my brothers and trying to help my twin brother make sure the house and our younger brothers looked good enough. To the people constantly coming by to check up on us, I knew if I didn't tell him confidently that I was fully willing to take my brothers and didn't have any doubts, they would have without a doubt split them up and thrown them in foster homes and I'd likely never be able to get them all back. It was scary and overwhelming for a long time at first, even though I had been doing it for years simply because so many people were constantly doing welfare checks and questioning me in them near weekly. But now I'm so glad I stated that lie in front of that judge. My brothers have grown into great people that I'm proud to have raised. And I wouldn't have been able to do it. I met a girl out at a party once. We were hitting it off. Went back to her place and clothes started coming off. We stopped for a moment and she said, "You plan on seeing me again, right?" I said yes, of course. But in reality I had just gotten out of a really crappy relationship and was looking for a rebound. After the deed was done we ended up staying up the whole night talking and laughing. She was really a beautiful person inside and out. So I did take her number and ended up calling her for a date. We have now been together for 10 years, are married and have 2 kids. She supported me through grad school and I'm currently returning the favor. I'm happy I didn't commit to my lie. She was the best accident that ever happened to me. Dang, that's sweet AF. That I was fully qualified for the job I applied for. Fully was stretching it. When I did get the offer, I busted butt to make that true ASAP. I have done this and succeeded as well. I had a month to make it all work. In the interview for my current job, I talked mostly about an Android project I worked on, only I didn't work on it at all. I was assigned to work on it, slacked off, and everybody forgot about it in a week until I got assigned to another project. Luckily, my current job isn't anything Android related. Not that I can't do Android, I'm just really rusty and way better with JavaScript, which is what they're doing anyways. They were just forward thinking about how they want to eventually move to Android. But by then I'll be able to claim my Android skills are rusty from all the time working on Node. I accidentally lied on my resume coming out of college. I knew a pseudo Pascal language from Unisys, where I had been an intern, called Macro. I got hired for a role at a company out of college specifically because I knew Macro, which for Deck was an assembler language. When I told my new employer that's not what I knew, they put me in a different, much better job that set me up for everything else that happened in my very good career. "Oh, you said Macro? Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I just how to Mac bro. The ladies love me. Frick it, you're hired." When I was 20, I told my parents I was carpooling with a girl named Jenny from Ontario to British Columbia, about 4,500 km. There was no Jenny. A friend and I hitchhiked the whole way there and down to California, traveling for about 6 weeks. While it was amazing, and I have tons of wacky stories, when I think about it I want to reach back in time and stop younger me from doing something so dangerous. I try not to lie, but most recently, when my current employer called my former employer to see how much I made, they made a mistake and said I made $1 more an hour than I was making. This led to my current employer offering $1 more than they would have. Upvotes for sharing the pain of a crappy hourly job where $1 raise makes you feel awesome. Everyone else in this thread is talking about their doubled salaries. Ugh. At job interview. Yeah, I got a company lease car. Okay, we can arrange a company lease car for you. So I got a company lease car when I started working there. A nice one at that as well. While I really didn't have one, it was just a car from my previous employer that I could take with me when I needed to go somewhere. It was basically every employee's car for when work somewhere in the country needed to be done. But the salary was still extremely bad. Couldn't live properly off it for the amount of rent you had to pay in that city or even surrounding cities. So I changed jobs like a month after that and got a way more fun job, better contract, better salary, etc. When I was joining the Air Force, the recruiter asked me if I ever took LSD and he made it clear that if I told him yes I would be disqualified. I told him no. I am now retired and getting paid for the rest of my life. Said I was in my final semester of college during a job interview. Technically it wasn't a lie because I was dropping out and it would be my last semester. Technically the truth. Not as awesome as the stories of people earning double their salary, but I managed to decrease the interest I'd be paying on a new car substantially. I was angry with the car dealership I was working with as they were very unprofessional once my car came in and my bank was offering me a lower interest rate than their standard. I walked in with a bank check ready to go, and when they asked what I was offered by the bank I decreased what I was actually offered by about 0.5. X. Real was 2.5. Told them it was 2.0. 15 minutes later, they managed to get me a better deal by decreasing my light number another 0.5. So needless to say I was happy about that. Lied to my mom that I'd come home for Christmas when I went to Canada for college. Met my husband, have 4 kids, have a great career, and I'm far away from my mom's crazy train. Sure, I can write SQL. Frick, said the man who'd never coded in his life. That was 10 years back when I got a junior role working for an outsourcer. Luckily it was a crap question asked by my manager at the time to catch me out for a "you don't have the skills to transfer" type refusal. I went off and now I work as a data engineering team lead type role, which is cool. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. I learned the process for how to solve problems in IT, not how to solve specific problems, so the skill set has been very transferable in different areas of IT. More often than not I can fix a problem with a piece of software that I've never even seen before, as long as I can get error logs. Imposter syndrome makes me feel like my entire, relatively successful career has been one giant undiscovered lie. I'm able to support my family comfortably, but the price is perpetual fear and anxiety about the day the other shoe drops. Does that count? No man, you're alright. If the shoe hasn't dropped already, it never will. My brother desperately wanted to get into a school in the city, but his grades weren't that great. Only 12th grade was decent. Also, it was really hard for suburban kids to get room and board. In his college admission essay, he detailed how he struggled with mental illness until finally, in 12th grade, he was diagnosed and medicated. I think he also made up some unverifiable crap about volunteering with the homeless and being a member of some mental health movement. He got in room and board too. And here all I came up with was lying about being in extracurricular clubs instead of writing I watch 7-9 hours of television every night. While vacationing with a friend in Alaska, he was driving and accidentally changed lanes, crashing into a double-decker tour bus. How he didn't see that big red behemoth is still a source of amusement for me, but nonetheless, they vacated the bus of passengers and we waited for the police to arrive. It was then that one of the passengers noticed my friend's world champion ring. It is a huge, gaudy jeweled ring he won for being on a world champion paintball team. Ironically, their logo looked a lot like the New England Patriots logo, and they made a jump to a conclusion that this guy must be a pro football player, probably a kicker. The driver came up to me and asked if I was his handler, and L went with it, being a pretty big guy. He then said he was sure we wanted to keep Mr. XXXX's name out of the papers, and he was sure it was his fault for the accident, and we were free to go. He would handle everything. He just wanted a picture with my friend. So, after all the passengers and driver had their pics taken, with me saying stuff like "please back up a bit, don't crowd Mr. XXXX," we bailed and got off scot-free. Wasn't really a lie, but we did not correct their misconception. Still laugh about it to this day. Probably not really a lie, but maybe an accidental lie of omission. I went to college but didn't graduate. On my resume, I've always listed the 2 colleges I went to and my majors, but never put any degree info. Still, maybe it's implied, I don't know. I'd be curious if I'd be where I am today if people knew I didn't graduate. If it wasn't important enough to ask about, then probably they wouldn't care either way. Lied on a job application. Said I'd gotten my degree but I dropped out about 2/3 of the way through to join a band. Was awesome. No regrets. I guess they never checked because I got the job, and it's been long enough now if they ever did find out they would just be like, doesn't matter. Telling people I am terrible at lying. Up until I was like 26, I was very good at lying. I would tell a fake story and sell it as the truth, for no reason, and about nothing even important. Pathological. No good reason other than to just lie. But I didn't want people to know that I was a good liar, so whenever it would come up, I would say I sucked at lying. That if I was lying everyone would be able to tell. I would even tell lies and act bad at it to really sell the point. And people would call me out. Jack it off. Why do you even try lying? You're so terrible at it. I stuck so hard to my story of being a terrible liar that I started to believe it myself. Now I am a terrible liar. I don't even try anymore. It gives me anxiety to not tell the truth all the time, and if I'm asked my opinion of something that the truthful answer would hurt, I avoid the question completely. I guess that it's the lie that made me who I am today. I don't like to admit that it's the reason I am an honest person, but it keeps me from doing stupid or unsavory things that I would have to lie about to keep me out of trouble and from hurting others' feelings. This is all one big lie. Nice try. Was pursuing a girl and came on too strong to her at a party. She texts me later on saying she just wants to be friends, and I told her that I was the same and I didn't know where she got vibe that I was trying to be anything more from. We started hanging out more after that and have been dating 4 years now and living together. More of a series of lies I suppose, but I've managed to lie my way out of doing any real work while also being one of the favored members of the team. I know how to pretend to work, how to ask for advice on certain things so I look busy, how to arrange activities so I'm busiest when people can monitor me and free do nothing when they're not. I had a one-to-one with my boss a few weeks ago and was quietly crapping myself about it. They were so concerned about my happiness and the role that they said I can work from home whenever I want to. That's how much they trust I'm busy non-stop. I'm actually really impressed with how far I've got in life by doing the bare minimum. I might write a non-ethical self-help book, How to Do Nothing and Get Away with It. I write down that I worked at a sign company for like 10 years. It has landed me job after job. If I wrote my real work history down, I'd be laughed out of the building. I'm just going to go out and look at a pony. You didn't buy that pony, did you? Number. I bought a horse mare, and we ended up breeding and training horses for 20 years. My oldest daughter even got to do a summer work study with a somewhat well-known trainer on the other side of the country through contacts. She went on to be a barn manager, riding instructor, and trainer herself, although she's also out of horses right now. I couldn't convince my husband to see the horse for a week, but when he finally did, he had to admit I made an excellent decision. I feel like if you can just go out and buy a horse cause you kinda wanna, you're probably already in a place where you aren't uncomfortable in your life. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.